This is Jonathan with the Strategic Multifamily Investing Podcast, and today I have with me my guest, Mr. Dustin Sutton. How are you doing?
Hi, Jonathan. Very nice. Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. We were just having some pre-conversation. I just said, well, let's just go ahead and rip. And we've been talking about his journey a little bit and his background, and he was like, I want to learn a little bit more about you. I just said, well, let's just go ahead and hit forward and jump into it. First, I'll talk about, I guess, why I brought on Dustin. I brought on Dustin because he's a part of a new group that I just tapped into. It is the Black Commercial Real Estate Network. Didn't know it existed. Someone else that I had reached out to on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a good, if you're looking for tips, that's a good one. Good place to reach out to. And he connected me with the group. And Dustin, you're like one of the co-creators and everything of this group, correct?
That is correct. I was really frustrated. It had been wearing on me that there's not a lot of Black representation in the commercial real estate industry in general, not just with acquisitions or asset management. But I hadn't seen a lot of Black members of this community. So one of the things I did is I wanted to at least reach out and find other people that I could talk to and at least make those connections, because maybe there are Black people in the industry that just don't have outward facing jobs, and maybe commercial real estate adjacent, so accounting, finance, back office that I just wasn't aware of. So I started the network to reach out, and I was thinking I'd find 5 or 10 people in San Diego area. And after the first week, we had around 10 people. Second week, there was about 15 to 20 people. I was connected by Dareth. I was connected with Dareth Jarvis in Texas, and he said, "Hey, I was thinking about doing something similar. Do you mind if we just join forces?" And I said, "Absolutely. I don't want this to be limited to San Diego." And he had a group of 30 to 40 guys that he was already connecting with.
Wow. And
we just joined forces. And so it went from that second week of having 15 to 20 people to having 60 people, and now almost 2 months in, we have almost 130 members of the network.
I'm pretty sure we'll double that before the end of the year. Because I keep seeing that there are other people that have jumped on, and there have been some really powerful calls that are out there. And one of the things that I thought about doing is like a second podcast during the month. Most of my podcasts have been focused on seasoned operators, who are out there, and, the connection, through Tony, as I was looking for a seasoned operator, to interview and talk to. But then I started recognizing, hey, there's a bunch of other African-Americans that are out there, that are not just necessarily multifamily focused, but again, may not have outward facing jobs, as you mentioned, that are in the space. I think that the numbers totally for African-Americans that are in the commercial real estate industry, there's probably like a couple percent nationally. It's like, I think the last thing I saw was like 3% or so, if not.
That sounds about right.
So, this is a good idea to kind of showcase, hey, there are African-Americans that are in this space. And sometimes I think it becomes kind of overwhelming when you're the only one that's in the room and not knowing that there are other people that are, potentially a part of your tribe. I mean, while, the brokerage that I am a part of, right now, I think I'm the only African-American in the brokerage. It's not a problem. It's not an issue like, I want to have, a whole bunch of other people that look like me around, but it'd be great to have some that are in this space that we can identify with, that we can, network with. Because sometimes the challenges that we have are a little bit different than some of our other counterparts that are in this, this industry. Have you had any of those situations that you want to share that, that were kind of different? Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what? I feel really fortunate to have I've had a lot of great people in my life, and just my family, friends, coworkers. One of the things in my day-to-day job, I didn't see a lot of Black faces.
Yeah.
And that wears on you. By no means do I think I have it rough or things are intolerable, but It's hard when you are the only one of whatever that be, whether it's gender, race, anything. When you're the only one in the room, it's hard. It's difficult, especially when your journey is different.
Yeah.
And you don't have somebody that necessarily has the same experiences as you or similar experience as you, and you don't have a sounding board or someone to help you navigate your way through your career and or life in general. So that for me was something that I felt was missing, and maybe that's, I didn't know the exact answer of how to fix that, but I just wanted to take an attempt to at least make some connections. I figured at least making more connections, and if I felt this way, then other people for sure felt this way, and we could be a sounding board or support for one another, and that's how the BCREN was formed.
Gotcha. Well, that's great. So let's talk about like your professional journey, how you got into commercial real estate. You started residential. What specifically do you do right now? How did you get involved within the commercial real estate space?
Sure. Well, thanks for asking. My professional career started, well, first of all, I moved out to San Diego from Philadelphia. After I graduated from the University of Delaware, I was originally going to go to law school. I decided against it. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, and I didn't want to go deeper in debt for something I didn't necessarily know I wanted to do. So one of the places I visited after college was San Diego. And although I did not know what I wanted to do, I said, I'm going to figure it out by the beach. So I made the trip out to San Diego, and I said I'd figure it out. My first job in San Diego was actually sweeping floors and loading trucks at an industrial space. And it was very, very humble beginnings out here, and it was very difficult to find my way. I then got into outside sales. I worked for a couple companies, and it wasn't necessarily something that I loved, but I had some really good experiences of learning how to talk to different people. And if anything, what I learned the most is to control the controllables, because when you're dealing with that much rejection with outside sales, a coworker of mine told me, and it sticks with me, I think about it all the time, is that attitude and activity. That's all you can control, is your attitude
and activity.
Yeah, your attitude and your activity. And as long as you don't let somebody else dictate or negatively influence your attitude or your activity, then everything will fall in place.
That's good.
Yeah, when I first heard it, I was like, I tried to be devil's advocate, and I thought of things that fell outside of that realm, but it's true. It's true. Just stay positive and keep working.
So where are you from? You mentioned that you went out to San Diego, but where was your base from?
Philadelphia. I was born and raised Philadelphia, and lived there for 18 years, and then I went off to college, and then moved out to San Diego.
So you mentioned attitude and activity.
Yes.
How do you currently manage those things? You know, what is it that you do to maintain your attitude, or to change states if you need to? And then what type of activity do you do to help keep you in a good space?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question, and I think this goes beyond what we
Sure.
talk about with just a career. Like this
Sure.
is a lifestyle. This is mental health. This is a very, very human concept.
Yes.
That I think everybody should find ways to embrace. And for me, that has been its own separate journey.
Okay.
Finding that, and I have a really close friend who has suffered from severe depression.
Okay.
And being, I guess, it's hard to even say alongside of that journey, but being aware and seeing the things that he was going through, and the things that he was implementing in his life, I found are very helpful for all of us, because we talk about severe depression, but there's a spectrum of anxiety,
Right.
and my thing is, or some of the things that I've started to do, meditation is key. Uh,
What type of
Focusing.
meditation do you do?
What I do mostly is mindfulness meditation,
Okay.
and I do it in the morning. I make it a habit. So the meditation, uh, journaling, I feel like that helps a lot. Being active, drinking water, eating less wheat, less sugar, and I think those things, and creating good habits, or what I would consider good habits, and
Right.
replacing bad habits with those good habits, has
What's some of
meant
the
everything to me in my mental health.
What are some of those good habits that you've implemented?
Well, the meditation,
Well,
the
yeah,
being
yeah, definitely
the
meditation. Yeah,
the
yeah.
being mindful of my diet, and keeping track of it.
Okay.
um, and further than that is being aware of doing doing things and keeping in mind others, and being selfless in a way that you're not expecting anything back, whether that be being active in the community, volunteering for a league or mentorship program. All those things are so important. I think we need more of them, and if everybody could just take a little bit of their free time or their free energy, and start thinking about how to help the community and help other people. um, yeah, I think that helps everybody involved, all parties.
Yeah, I just prior to this call, I was just on another call with someone else, and we were talking, and he's a former Marine, so he gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing at 3 o'clock in the morning? And he mentions he does, prayer, because he's a person of faith, but he says, I take time to just listen. And I said, what do you mean listen?
Yeah,
Help me understand, unpack that for me. And basically, it was his form of meditation, to be able
yeah.
to figure out what's going on with him. And he went on to tell a story of a situation where, something made him mad the day before, and he wanted to sit with himself to figure out exactly what that is. I think there is a scripture in the Bible that says something like, wars they come from within you. So if
Mm,
that's an issue, then that's something that, you need to grapple with. And so I do more of a walking meditation myself. So there's a little
okay.
park here that I do. And, sometimes I'll throw on, either some music. Generally, I'm listening to some sort of podcast or something. And,
Mhm.
that I want to listen to, that maybe, really, really deep in some sort of way, and, something that I want to work on. And I'm walking and listening to it and thinking about, how to maybe implement some things, and, checking in on myself. So that's one of my activities. And of course, I do pray. That's another one of my activities. The staying away from the sugar and the wheat. Oh man, that's a difficult one. I tell
Sure,
you,
sure is.
I have three vices. Two of them that I'll share. I say food and food and caffeine are definitely two of mine, and the food definitely shows. So grabbing a hold of that, especially during the pandemic, time is really important. This is the time
Sure.
we can actually work on that, because we're locked in, right? And I just, during the time of this recording, I just heard, that Michelle Obama just recognized that she has, as she mentioned, a low-grade depression of sorts. It's not necessarily, clinically diagnosed, and, maybe, where you're prescribing medication. Again, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist or psychotherapist, but she mentioned, as I understand, that with what's been going on right now in the news, around some of the George Floyd protests, and the police brutality, et cetera, those things have been weighing on her, in addition to being inside from the pandemic. And so mental health, some, especially within the African American community, I'd say, is not something that we really talk about at all. It gets something
Mhm.
that's shunned. And my tradition is from, a church tradition, specifically Pentecostal, the real good
Mhm.
Pentecostal, the tent revival Pentecostal, and you go to church and let somebody lay hands on you and cast the devil out of you, and you keep moving
Sure.
on.
So that's thank you for sharing that. That's and I want to stick a pin in a second
Sure.
for the religious item because that's so important, and I would love to share something with you on that. But as far as Michelle Obama and the low grade, that does not surprise me. I did not see that yet or read that article. But it does not surprise me. And moreover, I believe we all do.
Mm.
We all suffer from some type of or some on some scale of anxiety or depression or whatever word that we can put on. And I'm also not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but if you don't feel this, or maybe if you can't feel this, then
You're
maybe
numb. You're numb.
there's something else that's going on, because
You're
with
numb.
everything that we're exposed to,
Yeah.
the information that we have to digest on a day-to-day basis, it's hard. It's really hard. And again, that's why I go back to trying to implement positive habits and good habits. And so to go back on to religious background, I had a somewhat, I think, unique upbringing and being around different faiths and thoughts regarding religion. I went to a Quaker school from
Oh,
kindergarten to
wow.
fourth grade. Yeah,
Oh,
they're
okay, this is really good. This is really good.
yeah.
Okay, well, go ahead. Go ahead. This is really good. Yeah, go for
Well,
it. Yeah.
one of the things that, not being necessarily raised Quaker, but going to a Quaker school from kindergarten to fourth grade, there's something called meeting house,
Hmm.
and essentially what you do and I'm sure somebody who is deep in the Quaker faith could tell you more about it and elaborate. But from what I recall, is a meeting house on Wednesday, or you sit in a room on benches or pews, and you basically sit in silence with your
Yes.
thoughts.
Yes.
And then if you have something you want to share, you stand up and share it. And, the things that I remember people standing up and sharing were somebody would stand up and say, I went fishing with my father this weekend, and it was really nice to spend that time with him. And again, we were children here, but they would share things like that meant something to them and sit down. And I didn't get it at that point, but now looking back on it as older, I was like, that is so special,
Yeah.
and that is so important to have that space to do something like that and be able to share openly. So after that, then I went to public school from fifth to eighth grade,
Hmm.
a school called Masterman in Philadelphia, which was also, it was a great experience. It was a school, magnet school, so it brought people from all over the city. And then I ended up going to a Catholic school for high school. So I went to Quaker, then to public school, then to Catholic school, and I wasn't raised Catholic, although my grandmother and grandfather, they were church going. So I did have exposure to church, but not necessarily the Catholic Church. So that was an interesting process of going to religion class and seeing people that already heard all the stories that I wasn't aware of all of them. So that was definitely an interesting experience. But now looking back on it, on all these experiences and all these times, there's so much truth in all the faiths that I've been aware of, and reading, Indian and Hindu texts and the Bhagavad Gita, and just meeting friends that are of Islamic faith. There's so much truth inside of these words. So I love the fact that people can find solace in the
Yeah.
words of these books and these religions.
And I think, and the first thing somebody's going to say is, what in the world does this have to do with commercial real estate? You're not talking about cap rates. You're not talking about, management or asset management. We've got some of that. I mean, and Dustin and his team definitely, they do asset management and property management, and we can get into that. But honestly, what motivates you to continue to go back to environments, as you mentioned, where there's a lot of information that's being thrown at you, where you're having to, and I believe you develop a love for the skill set that you bring to the commercial real estate, field. But there is, what motivates you to continue to be your best and to deal with sometimes the other communication or environmental toxins that happen, the low grade, microaggressions, et cetera, is sometimes your faith, is sometimes those actions and activities, right? Or attitude and activity that you bring to the thing that helps you to manage so that you become more of a thermostat rather than a thermometer.
Sure. Well, yeah. Well, absolutely. You know what? Okay. So to address this, let's go back to what I was saying about my career path and where it led me. So after outside sales, I had an opportunity to be a leasing agent at a residential real estate firm in San Diego, a small boutique firm on the coast. And as a leasing agent, I felt that my sales training and my personality and what I wanted to be out and about. I didn't move to San Diego to sit in the office 10 or 12 hours a day. So being out and about, meeting different people and using my sales experience in the leasing field, it was a perfect match. And after a year of that, so it's residential, single family, multifamily, and some mixed use where there's retail on the first floor and residential upstairs. And so then I got an opportunity to take on my own portfolio and be the leasing agent and also the manager. And during that time, I got the exposure to the mixed use, and I started to see the difference between the commercial space and the residential. And I said, you know, this is a challenge that I'd like to take on. So from there, I got an opportunity as a full-time commercial real estate manager. So just staying in the property management lane, and I got a job at a REIT, national REIT traded at the S&P 500, and it was a great experience. Learned a lot, and you know, from there I started the company that I now am at, which is Meisner JK Commercial Real Estate Services. We do not only property management, we do you know, full service property management services, commercial real estate services. So property accounting.
Are you primarily just in the Southern California area, or are you in any other states right now? Do you guys own any units yourself? How many?
Yeah, we're third party management, and we do our property management all in Southern California, but because of our systems and what we've been able to put together for our Yardi systems, and we've invested over the past 2 decades over $1 million in our accounting systems and in Yardi itself, and so we can do that anywhere, and we're great at it. So we've been in business for 28 years. We are it's all third party management. We don't own any of the assets, so it's all third party, and we're the we're the largest privately owned third-party management company in San Diego, and we manage over 16 million square feet of retail, office, industrial, and owner associations. Also,
so you do multifamily. Is that a part of the owner associations, or?
You know, the commercial associations where we manage, but we partner with multifamily and residential teams because we become their back office. Again, Yardi can be expensive, it can be complex, but we've been doing it for a quarter of a century, and we do it well. So if someone wants to do the day-to-day management, and we handle all the accounting, the receivables, the payables, the financial reporting, the budgeting, the forecasting, we do it all.
Got it. So then, you know, I could see you partnering very well with, say, a third-party property management firm, right? Where you all do the asset management while I do the property management. You know, as we're walking through this, you know, Red Boot LLC, you know, we're talking about acquisitions, and, you know, I think also you guys are pretty good at doing your diligence as well. You know, there may be a need for, you know, someone to say, I want to do due diligence. Before I make an assumption, do you all do due diligence? You know, do you have systems for that as a part of, you know, you may be taking on something if you're going to do third-party management in Southern California, or if you're going to do asset management of some sort later on, do you all do due diligence?
Absolutely, and it's one of our strong suits. Okay. One of the things that anybody who's in asset management, I mean, we can even, you know, pull back and look larger at that. It's all about having good data and being able to review and having a solid foundation to make good decisions. Right? In the end, it's about decision making. So if someone's going to be acquiring a property, it's very important that you don't just rely on the seller's the pro forma or whatever information that's coming from the seller. So being able to digest the information that's being supplied, whether they be the lease documents, and abstracting those documents and finding out if the income is correct, the estimated expenses are accurate, and having that information going in there. We've had several different instances where we were able to have the buyer go back or give them the information that was necessary to make good decisions on the purchase, and either identifying areas that there's a discount on the purchase price, or they could look at the information and say, hey, this is actually undervalued, so let's jump at this, let's push this forward.
So question, since you've done this for a quarter of a century, right? 25 years more, what is your thought about retrading? I hear a lot of people, industry saying, retrading is a bad thing. I hear some people saying retrading is a good thing. Some people use it as a strategy to even lock up properties first, and then once they do the due diligence or something, decide to retrade. So I only retrade if there's something that's severe. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I just want to clarify that I have not necessarily been in the industry for a quarter of a century.
Oh,
Meisner G.K., the company, has been in business for over a quarter of a century. So that's a good question. But you know what? From my perspective, I'm a hold guy. I think as far as if the questions you're asking, I believe in, if you have real estate, don't let it go. And if it's something that's going to have value and you have the land and it is, then don't let it go. But again, my day-to-day and what I do in the property management field, and also with the oversight of some of the accounting processes, is we try to advise our clients what's best based on the data that we have and that we're able to extrapolate from whatever's present, whatever governing documents there are. And it just depends on the situation and the circumstance.
Okay. So there is room, if you will, for an operator potentially to retrade, given to have good data. And good data starts with all the things you mentioned, doing, a proper due diligence where you're very thorough, you're looking at the leases, where you're looking at all the other documents that are coming to you to be able to make sound decisions and sound judgments on that.
Absolutely. And I think that's so important, because the information that you have, that's the foundation. Mm-hmm. That having accurate data and being able to make, especially if you have a team that is good and experienced at being able to review data and some experience in other resources to utilize, then
So let's just say this. Say that, I wanted to maybe approach your company to do asset management. I already have a property manager that is doing Yardi and has all that information, and they've given us a login or something that we can go into. How do you all engage someone, who's an operator, in that sort of capacity? I mean, are you giving them weekly, daily, monthly, quarterly statements? How do you all engage in that situation?
Yeah, that's a good question. And being the size that we are of a company, we are uniquely situated to be the Goldilocks. We can be very, very flexible. We can give the asset manager or real estate owner, asset manager, operator, developer, whoever the client is, right, access with the login. So we can provide custom reports, whatever they want, so they can go in there, click of a button, and they get whatever reports that we have set up in the system. And so a lot of people that consider purchasing or implementing the Yardi platform, or if they've already purchased it, some people struggle to be able to figure out how all the modules work in the system. So us as experts, we become that back office. We take care of it. We train the staff on the operations of real estate, and also we handle the grunt work of the database administration. So not only do we abstract the leases, we set up the chart of accounts, code the invoices, enter the rent receipts, reconcile accounts, produce financial statements, CAM reconciliations, and also assist with the budgeting and forecasting process. So we let the asset manager or whoever, or we can become the asset manager. However, we're flexible with that. So it just depends on the situation. But us being, we're not such a small company where we just get blown around in the wind or if something happens. But we're also not such a large organization. I think of it like a ship, right? A little ship gets tossed around in a storm. A large tanker takes a million years and a lot of red tape to just make a turn. We're right in the middle where we have all the systems in place. We have very a great leadership that makes informed decisions, but we can be flexible and we can pivot when needed.
So do you guys have accountants on staff already, or we bring our own accountant, et cetera, when it comes tax time to do K-1s and distributions and stuff like that? How do you all function in that space?
Yeah, good question. And again, that's something that is flexible as well. We have accountants on staff, very experienced accountants. The average tenure of our accountants is over 15 years in real estate accounting. So proficient with Yardi systems, proficient in accounting. And one of the things that we want to do, we don't want to take away accountants or jobs from companies or the real estate owner. No, we want the property owner, operator to do their magic. We'll do the back office work, and the accountants can focus on other things that they're doing. We'll take care of all the back office stuff, but the CFO and all the accountants, they can do. Now, we have accountants on staff. If they want us to take on all the accounting, we can do that as well. But our priority is helping our companies and our clients achieve their goals.
Got it. I mean, because the reason why I asked that is, for someone maybe who's getting started, or, I've talked to another operator just recently, and he's a seasoned operator. He's looking to, he's focusing now on legacy kinds of things, where he wants, to hold his property for a lot longer. But one of the questions that he had, or one of the things that some of his investors have had as growth points for him is, okay, the way that you set this property up for us to invest is this way, and then it's a different way for another property, and it's a different way for a third property. So now what he's looking for is a system so when he is structuring deals, he has a way that he wants to be able to pay and compensate the investors, whether they be GP or LP in the deal. So he's going to put them all on one system. Same thing as I would assume coming back in. They're really good at exactly as you said, being the operator, going in and transforming and doing the construction and, really turning around, this value add situation. But, on the front end, how he presents needs to be unified. And I would assume for those that have a bunch of other assets coming out, you don't want to have multiple systems where you manage one property that may say 30, 40, 50 units as kind of like a mom and pop, but then you have this other 200 unit engine over here and you're managing, as you would, an insurance fund, say. You want to probably have some sort of consistency. And it sounds like that's what your organization does, where you're bringing on a certain level of consistency amongst all properties that may be invested in by a particular operator.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point, and that is something that our clients love what we do and not only just our clients CPAs, because the financial reports that we have are crisp, they're clear, they're consistent, and if somebody has a portfolio of several different property types, and they all roll up into a consistent report. And that's another thing that we handle as far as the custom reports, is that they can be property specific, and then they all roll up together to that one unifying report.
Got it. So then in terms of cost, which I know, we're recording this and, they change without subject thing. I don't know if I necessarily want to ask a specific dollar amount, but more or less, generally, how do you all charge? Are you charging by property, or are you charging flat rates, or, is there a sliding scale of sorts? Generally, how are you charging, say, your customers?
Yeah, that's another great question. I could not give you a specific dollar amount, or we don't base it off a percentage. We, like I said before, we are very experienced in what we do, and one of the things that we've implemented over time is a time tracking system. So we look at a portfolio, we have a conversation with our client, we see what they want, what they need. We go back into our system and we can pull data from comps to those properties or that portfolio, and we know roughly how long it's going to take each person to spend on that account. So we go back and look at our historical data, compare it, and then we break it down by time and how much time it's going to take each person. And each person in our company tracks their time on the property level. So the accountants, the assistants, the senior managers, everybody tracks their time. So we can pull back and look, and then we can also right size the account later if we're not spending as much time on there or spending more time. We can go back to the client and say, this is how much we estimated, this is how much we are spending, and then we go back to the bargaining table. But in the end, what this is about, and what we do as a company is about helping our clients be successful.
Got it.
So if the price point for a full service of asset management and the oversight or the private man, if that doesn't fit their model, we'll find other ways to help. Or we'll say, hey, maybe this isn't the best fit for you. Maybe we can do X, Y, and Z, or even introduce them to somebody else that might be a better fit for them. Because in the end, this goes back to what we were saying when we started our conversation on it's bigger than just real estate. This is a way of life. This is being a positive member of the community, whatever community that is, and helping people. And that's what we want to be, a resource for other people in the commercial real estate and in the community in general.
And, for me, it's starting to click more. Some of the conversations that I've had in the past that kind of were like, it's kind of, woo-woo, seemingly, in that, literally, as you're in commercial real estate, better or more than any, say, environment that I've been in, it really truly is a relationship, management type business. And you want to make sure that you're in relationship with people who can grow with you. Again, yes. You may not need that full service asset management company now, but it's good to know that it's there, right, when you need it. And
absolutely.
If you're really out there for legacy, again, that other conversation, I can't wait till that actually hits. But if you're out there really for legacy, and it's not that conversation hit me in a different way than I've heard that before. Like, you hear the same thing over and over and over again, and you hear how some people talk about it, and it becomes more or less like, oh, let's get rich quick kind of thing, versus, no, this is something that I really just kind of want to be into and chill out with the people that I'm in it with. And I want to cash them out in 5 or 8 years, but I want to keep them in the deal forever. And the way that you do that is to make sure that you have relationships with asset managers and property managers who are in it for the long haul, can grow with you and go back and right size, so that if you are in that situation where you want to pass along your business of commercial real estate, in our context, it's commercial multifamily investing, right? Investing in apartment buildings, and you have a portfolio of apartment buildings, you have a partner here, right, that can say, okay, it's time to start transitioning these things. Well, we were with Jonathan for the last, 25 years. Now let's, educate, his posterity as to now how this is going to work, and, the things that they're going to need to do in order to keep up with the property, et cetera, and know those systems, because those systems have been tried and true for 25 years. They can only grow from here. And that's awesome. Now, we've been talking for a while.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, I think that's great. That's a great point that you mentioned, and that's what we want to do. We want to help people grow, and we have a proven track record of doing so. And this, a fundamental principle is having a win. It has to be a win-win.
Yeah.
And that's why we figure out exactly what it will take and
Yep.
what the time commitment, what the cost will be from our side to properly make a positive impact on our clients' portfolio. So if we're spending, 10 times more time than what we're getting paid for, that's not a win-win.
Nope.
You know,
You got to go back to the
and also
yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So the whole point is like, look, we want to help you be successful. This is what we think it takes. If someone says no, we're not willing to pay that. Of course, we want to work with them as much as possible and figure something out. But there's a reason that it costs, because we're excellent at what we do. So sometimes people pass on us and they go somewhere else, and then they get what they pay for, and then they come back, and that happens, and we're happy to help them.
Right.
So anyway, I just think that's a really important point to touch on.
And also for, anyone who's doing their underwriting, some people are doing 3 to 1% of asset management. Well, here is where that 1, 2, 3% potentially could be. Or you have a staff that's on site and you've put all that money in your payroll, but you still have maybe 2, 3% in property management. Well, here is where maybe a percent or two might be able to go to help you with making sure that you're managing this staff on site well, by tracking all the expenses and doing all the back end stuff that you may not have time for. And again, you may not want to have time for. The purpose of this business, I would think, for a lot of people is specifically to get back time, right? Because time is is one of those things you can't get back once you've spent it. It's more important than money after a period of time. I don't know, I'm saying that now in the context for some other people, we're in a pandemic and people have lost their jobs, and there are situations where people are like, I need money right now. And I certainly understand that. But once kind of the bases have been covered and you're now focused on, okay, what am I going to do with the rest of my time? You want to make sure that you're not doing it on, basically looking at bills and things of that sort, if that's not something that you really find fascinating and want to spend your time on. So
absolutely, and that's a difference between just an overall concept of spending versus investing. You want to make sure you're investing your time. You're not just spending it.
There you go. There's so many other things that I want to say here, but there's one thing I want to mention, and I want to pivot and ask a question. It's kind of future. Right now we're in COVID-19. What do you see moving forward? What's going on with the industry? What are some of your I guess you put your money down on this is possible to happen. But I want to go back to something we said earlier with respect to the Quaker community. I visited a couple of Quaker meetings when I was in Washington, D.C., and I think it was somewhere else I went and visited. But they are, if you've never been and you're struggling with this whole thing called meditation or trying to sit in quiet and everybody's running in, go to a Quaker meeting. If you can socially distance yourself, you can be away or whatever, and just sit in silence for like an entire hour. And you're like, after the first 15 minutes, you feel like you're about to die, especially if you come from my tradition. When we're talking about Pentecostal, saying amen after, a couple of seconds, you're like, okay, where's the rest of the everything else is going to happen, But that was probably one of the best things. And I every now and then I go back and I just take it on a meeting and just sit in silence for a little while. So that's cool. But let's go now to the COVID-19. What are you seeing? And then how do you think things are going to be changing within the industry moving forward? I know you're not necessarily focused on multifamily, but retail, mixed use. What are you seeing?
Yeah, well, gosh, there is something that I want to make sure that I express here, is that there are so many people suffering.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that are scared, that are out of work, that don't know where the next meal is going to come from,
Yeah.
Don't know if they're going to be able to stay in their homes. And to those people and everybody who's suffering right now, we need to we need to support each other. We need to help each other. We need to be as positive as possible
Good.
and affect positive change in each other's lives.
That's good.
So that's first and foremost. I want to say that and be very mindful of your mental health. Mind, body, spirit. Get everything in line and just help each other.
Pause 1 second. There's one thing here. You mentioned mental health again, and specifically for African Americans. I was in DC again and ran across the creator of Henry Health. Go to henryhealth.com. It is a mobile app that's been created by African Americans for African Americans, specifically tailored to African American males, to address those concerns and challenges that we may have with the low grade depression and a bunches of other things that are out there. And I think that they're doing an excellent job in helping to raise the flag there. And so there's help out there if you want somebody to talk to, which is not something that we do off the break, so I get it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Absolutely. We can't say it enough. So let's make sure that everyone knows how important that is. So one of the things that I've noticed, and we could talk about this all day long, but there's so many. In San Diego specifically, biotech industry is extremely hot right now. Industrial, and I manage and I'm involved with retail, industrial, office. And so while retail and office has been, a work in progress, and there have been challenges, but I'm really proud of our team and Meisner JK and the way we've stepped up and handled everything on our end. So I'm extremely proud of our team and how we were able to handle this situation, because and the owners, our clients, sometimes they're confused, they're scared. Our tenants are confused and don't know what's happening. So there's a lot of confusion, a lot of anxiety there, and just the way our team has handled it it's been nothing short of fantastic. So kudos to the whole team at Meisner JK. Thank you so much for everything all you guys are doing. So industrial has been amazing. All the tenants that I've seen have been able to sustain and thrive, and sometimes pivot their business model to be successful. So that's great. But one of the things that I've seen specifically in San Diego is necessity begets innovation, and people have to be creative, and they are. And as far as the outdoor dining and moving some spaces to the exterior, I think we're going to see more of that. I think in the future we're going to see some office buildings maybe converted to some mixed use, and allowing some residential into what's now zoned as office. So I imagine that's something that's going to be coming down the pike. And also in retail, I haven't seen much talk of this, but it's something that I think might be a good idea of where the industry might go, is a blending of some of the industrial and some of the retail. Where
Let me understand what an example of that looks like, a blending of the industrial and retail.
Sure. Well, let's look at two different sides of that. Okay, let's say an industrial space that it's large and it's open, and you can have plenty of space. So like a brewery or a coffee shop, where so now industrial is looked at retail, and maybe you get some rent increases there, and you can that's an option, and it's something that I've seen in San Diego. But also when you have these big boxes that are going out or that aren't operating in a retail space, that are just as good as long as they have the access as last mile distribution, maybe you start repurposing some of that space into more of an industrial distribution type center. Okay. So I think there's going to be a lot of creativity needed here, and I think there's going to be things that come out of this time that are going to be sustainable, that maybe prior to this we didn't think were even options.
Right. Do you see anything that's being accelerated that may have been, for example, in education, there was a movement towards online education. A lot of universities popped up that were online, and now everybody is having, to be forced to at least be hybrid, if not, have a pure online, environment because of COVID-19. Do you see any adoptions like that within the retail industrial space? Manufacturing, warehousing, anything like that that's forcing some innovation?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting point, and I think it's definitely appropriate to juxtapose those two. I think some of and going back to the flexibility and some of the industrial changing is that now that everybody has a smartphone and you can find your way there, that you don't necessarily need to have your space on a main thoroughway to bring customers to your establishment. So going back to the industrial being utilized as retail whenever possible, is that you can have something that's a little off the beaten path, because if you have a good product and word of mouth, people can find it. So in that way, people that already have an online presence already have a leg up, and they've been already set up for this. And you know what? To that point, something that we've done as a company at Meisner GK is that we are essentially paperless, and we were able to pivot. So when we weren't allowed to come into the office, when everything was shut down, it was an easier transition for us to have people work from home and get, as long as their internet was set up at home and they had the high-speed internet, and they had their computer and everything else that they needed to set up, and our leadership also, we supplied everybody with whatever we needed, so we were able to make that pivot effectively.
Excellent.
So yeah, I think people that already have an online presence and have already established delivery methods and things of that nature, I think they're going to have a leg up here than other people that are going to have to catch up.
Good. Well, this has gone a lot longer than I anticipated, but I like it. I'm happy and I'm here for it. So how do people get in contact with you or get in contact with your company if they're interested in potentially interfacing with you? Could you tell us how to get in contact with you? And then you can put them in contact with your company, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jonathan, thank you so much for having me and for having this space. The Black Commercial Real Estate Network has been very special for me. The calls that we have and making connections, people such as yourself and Dareth Jarvis and all the people that are on that Black Commercial Real Estate Network, it's been nothing short of magic. So thank you for everybody for supporting that and being a part of that. You can get in contact with me directly if you want to go to LinkedIn. Just search my name. It's Dustin Sutton. My company's name is Meisner GK, which is German and French. It's not the easiest thing to spell, but find me and we'll get you plugged into the company. So just maybe if there's show notes or something, we can put a link to the company and also my LinkedIn profile as well. But again, Jonathan, thank you so much for having me. These conversations are so important, and I look forward to continuing our relationship.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dustin.